Welcome to the Res. I'm Lindsay. The Pine Ridge Indian Reservation is one of the largest reservations in the U.S., and it is the largest one in South Dakota, way out on the western side of the state by the Black Hills. It is home to the Oglala Lakota people, part of the Sioux Nation of Plain Indians. Today they face many challenges: 90% unemployment, over half of adults battle substance abuse, and meth has really taken hold in recent years. Poor nutrition, with over half of the adults over the age of 35 diagnosed with diabetes. They have a high suicide rate, especially for people under the age of 30. Their infant mortality rate is among the highest in the Western Hemisphere. Poverty is rampant. However, the Oglala Lakota people have strong history and heritage, including great leaders like Crazy Horse, Red Cloud, and Little Wound. They continue many of their traditions today and are not without hope. We are able to share some of their history and experience, some of their contemporary culture.
So our accommodations for the week was the Lakota Prairie Ranch and Resort. The students stayed in the tents all week, while the adults luckily got to stay in hotel rooms. But we were very well taken care of. And our host for the week was the Oyate Techa Project, and the youth center was led by Rose Frazier. She and her team lined up our projects and cultural experiences for the week. The youth center is located in the town of Kyle, South Dakota, which is very close to the Badlands and the Black Hills. And Doug, that's Doug up there. He's one of our new friends. He is one of the other leaders who helped us all week. He is a master gardener, carpenter, and so much more. We really needed his help and leadership all week as we got into our projects.
Our evening meals for the week were also provided by Rose and her team. Awesome food. We had Indian tacos, traditional stew, including buffalo meat, and plenty of fresh fruits and vegetables. Breakfast and lunch each day were at Little Wound School, government-funded meals. The food was good, but it's the chance to meet new people from the community and maybe shoot some hoops that made those meals so good. By the end of the week, we were glad to make new friends and have so much fun. Now that you know how we were set up for the week, let's dive into the service projects we did.
My name is Jake. Gardening is the primary service project we did. Rose and her team dream of feeding her people with healthy food. Instead of relying on government subsides and commodity foods, she wants her people to eat fresh food. She and her team are training people to grow their own organic produce. This year, Rose is training 21 families how to grow their own gardens. In all, they have 22 gardens going this year. The largest one is 5 acres, which is the one we worked in. Rose and her team planned for our group to help with the harvest so that they could be the primary provider for the One Spirit food distribution in the nearby town of Pine Ridge. It was a big order: 1,500 tomatoes, 500 cucumbers, 2 tons of zucchini and squash, radishes, beets, green and red peppers, jalapeno peppers, and last but not least, 800 pounds of green beans. We picked over 800 pounds of green beans, and we sorted, dried, and bagged all 800 pounds. That was the biggest achievement of our week. Rose and her team made that delivery. It was the first time that their gardening project was able to feed people outside of their hometown of Kyle. They're planning to make another 3 deliveries before the season is over, and if all goes according to plan, they will make about $60,000 from their gardening project this year.
Hi, my name is Michaela. Each day, our small groups wrote a different type of poem as part of our processing. We will share some of these poems throughout our sermon. The first one is from Gardening Day, and the poem is a rhyming couplet. Perseverance we have seen through our toiling with the bean.
Good morning, my name is Brad. I had the joy of working on the Farmers Market Pavilion. There were 6 sticks in the ground when we got there, and when we left, it was fully framed, trussed, and roofed. There were actually 2 pavilions that were already built, and we finished up this 3rd one. This is where they're going to be able to sell and distribute fresh fruits and vegetables to their own community. Our students and adults were able to experience and learn some important carpentry skills during this project. Individuals were able to use power tools such as framing nailers, screw guns, or sheet metal cutters and hammers. We actually nicknamed Jacob there Tin Snipper because he was really good at snipping the tin for the roofs. And everybody who was able to partake in cutting the sheeting and everything for the roofs at least got one cut, but luckily we had a nurse on staff that took care of all those.
Good morning, my name's Dave. So after breakfast on Thursday morning, my fencing crew went over to the shelter project to get some digging tools from the box truck. When we arrived, I noticed a load of highway gravel in the parking lot that was probably 4 foot wide by 50 feet long. Whoa, I said to myself. And there, enthusiastically attacking this massive dump truck load of rock were our kids. They had begun spreading this rock with about 4 shovels, 2 rakes, and a 1 wheelbarrow. I don't know if you've ever personally moved rocks, but I knew what a huge undertaking this would be. About that time, I noticed a guy sitting in a white SUV in the parking lot watching our activity, so I walked over to say good morning. After some discussion about who we were and what we were doing there, he asked me if I had a blade. And I was a little confused, and I said, well, I have a pocket knife. He goes, no, not a pocket knife, a blade, a grater. And I smiled and said, no, but we just have our strong backs. And he says, well, hang on a minute, I know a guy. So he called someone and said help was on the way. And so I'm thinking some guy with a bobcat would come and help out. And about 15 minutes later, a full-size Caterpillar motor grader shows up and drives into the parking lot. And unfortunately, we didn't have a picture of that, but I'm thinking to myself, man, can you imagine how long it would take to requisition a road grader if we were off the reservation? So that was our big God moment.
Good morning. My name is Dennis Schultz. I'm one of the old geezers that went on the mission trip. And I'd like to tell you about John's garden. John, who is elderly and has limited ability, is one of the Lakota people that participated in the program that helps people become more self-sufficient by growing and harvesting produce on their own property. Becoming farmers has been a hard pill to swallow for the Native American tribes because their tradition and culture was based on hunting and gathering. So growing crops meant staying in one place, and this is not their traditional way. Although a great idea, farmer has been a difficult sell. A long history of mistrust of the white people is also an issue. Recently, however, more and more people have become part of the project that teaches how to prepare the soil, plant seeds, care for and harvest produce. After completing the required courses and incentive to follow through, graduates are given seeds, fertilizer, irrigation supplies, and a fence. So our task was to help John put up his fence. His garden was about 15 by 100 feet, and it was doing great, but his promised fence had been in a long time coming. His property was located on the reservation just outside of Kyle, South Dakota. He and his family live in a trailer with a lean-to added to one side. Pretty nice as far as homes go on the reservation. There were no trees on the property, just prairie grass, weeds, and dirt, and lots of mud when it rained. Keeping out deer, antelope, horses, and an occasional prairie dog was the purpose of the fence, mostly to keep out the horses. And the reason for that was horses are considered to be sacred by the Lakota people, so they roam all over. There are no fenced-in areas. So when you need a horse, you just round up one and jump on and ride it wherever you want to go, if you're a Lakota person. Supplies are also a big issue because the nearest Menards is an hour and a half away. So projects are often delayed with very little follow-through, and for this and other reasons, often beyond the Lakota's control. Well, we had a half a day to and a pile of the necessary supplies waiting for us because this wasn't one of the planned projects that we had. So it was kind of on the last day we had there, we had a half a day to put up this fence around the garden plot that was 50 by 100 feet. Thank God we found a gas-powered auger, and that was one of those God things because the ground was very, very hard and dry. Dave Borghetti and I soon learned how to operate it, and after a few practice holes, got pretty good at it. So if anybody needs a power auger and help, just let us know, and we'll try to help you out. Bob supervised and carried posts. Trish operated the tape measure. Janet, Jill, and Joe pulled garden weeds. We took turns pounding in metal posts. Dave, Pastor Paul's dad, was an expert post pounder, and we were quite the team. Our adult team was better known as the Mamas and the Papas. I really wanted our team to be called the Senior Moments, but that was quickly voted down by the rest of the team, but that's another story. Unfortunately, our time at John's place ran out and we were unable to finish the job. John was really appreciative of our help, and maybe when we go back next year, we can string the wire. You see, things are pretty slow on the reservation, so that might just happen. At the time, this job didn't seem like a big deal, but it was a big deal. It was a huge deal, and even huger was this mission trip. Because kids and adults alike forged lasting relationships, and they showed not only the Lakota people, but each other what the love of Jesus is all about. It was a blessing for me to be a part of this awesome experience.
So while we were in Kyle, we got to experience, or we were invited to a Boys and Girls Club. So we got to hang out with the boys and girls there. When we first got there, they were playing basketballs and playing with chalk and just hanging around. I was a little nervous, so I just watched basketball with my friend Kelsey. And after a while, we decided to go by Lexi, who's playing with chalk with two little girls. Their names were Tessa and Brianna. Tessa was about 6 and Brianna was about 10. We started playing tic-tac-toe with them. Then we all played dots and boxes. After a little while, we got bored, so we decided to go and play tag on their playground. Into the game, another little girl joined. Her name was Juanita. She was about 7. We played tag until we got tired of it. Then we played with bubbles that we had brought as a donation. Tessa was having a hard time blowing the bubbles and was getting really upset, so Kelsey, Lexi, and I taught her how to. She eventually got it, and she was super happy, and we were happy for her. After bubbles, Kelsey, Juanita, Tessa, and I played on the seesaws until it was time to go inside. We kind of split up from there. Kelsey played chess with the older guys. Lexi played Uno with the teenagers, and I stayed with the 2 girls, and we painted. While we were painting, I asked the 2 girls questions, like what their favorite colors were, animals, and foods. Then I asked if they had any siblings. Juanita had 4 siblings, 3 brothers, 1 sister, and Tessa had 5, 2 brothers and 3 sisters. I asked how their families were. Tessa told me that her mother was sick. I asked her if she would like me to pray for her. She said she would like that very much. So that night at our campfire, I prayed for Tessa's mother to feel better. The next time that I saw her, I told her that I had prayed for her mother, and she thanked me with a big hug and a smile and said thank you. I asked if her mother was doing better. She said she was doing a lot better. After it was time to say goodbye to everyone there, I speak for everyone when I say we all made amazing friends.
Hi, my name is Aing. Aside from the projects, a very important part of the trip was in experiencing the culture and heritage of the Lakota people. We did this in many ways. Today, I want to share with you my wonderful horseback riding experience. Since that was my first time I was on a real horse, I got so excited and nervous at the same time because horses are powerful. The first horse they gave me was named Rain. His whole body was a chocolate brown with white markings that looked like raindrops. The Indian horse trainer told me to talk to my horse and try to understand him. Horses have emotions like humans too, and the emotion reflect ours. If we're afraid or angry or nervous, they feel the same. So I talked to my horse and tried to pet him to make him feel more comfortable. Unfortunately, he didn't seem to like me that much. He did everything opposite what I expected him to do. I wanted him to turn left, he turned right. I wanted him to turn right, he turned left. He even ran into the fence and hit my left knee. Since I was wearing long pants, I didn't notice that it started bleeding until I got back to the ridge. Because my horse was so hard to manage, one of the trainers named Kobe helped with me through. I made a promise with Kobe that once I got back to Lake Geneva, I would tell people about him, my first Indian friend. Kobe told me he was a happy person because he was able to do what he loved every day, riding horses, teaching others, and the most important thing is to be with nature. So I was very blessed to talk to Kobe and his brothers during the ride to help me understand the culture and how they see the world around them. My second horse was easier to manage. She was really calm and gentle, but as soon as I started to feel more confident riding a horse, she ran into a tree with a very sharp leaves and they cut my arms and my face. It was terrifying. I realized I wasn't so lucky with horses, but I still had an awesome experience that I would never forget. One more thing to mention was the poem that we did the first evening, and it had to be 3 words. The poem was, "Oh my butt." Thank you for listening.
Another thing we got to experience was we went to Wounded Knee. Wounded Knee is a very sacred place for the Lakota tribe, and we were very honored to be there. In the middle of it all was a mass grave that was surrounded by a fence filled with gifts of all sorts, like tobacco, sage, and water, and things along those lines. The only people who can be buried there are the people of the Lakota tribe. People of all ages are laid to rest there, babies, toddlers, teenagers, and adults. Some of these people are also veterans. Every year they also recreate the battle and hundreds of horses run through the grounds. Wounded Knee was a great experience to be a part of.
Hi, I'm Jill. Wounded Knee is a very special place to the Native American. In December 29th of 1890, it was the last major battle of the Indian Wars. Many of the Sioux, Oglala Sioux, were killed, about 300 men, women, and children. And the bodies were left out because there was a blizzard coming. So the bodies were left out in the elements for a couple days. And when they went back to find the bodies, they did find some that were people that were still alive. Many were frozen to death, as you could see from that picture that was shown. They dug a grave, and that now is the Wounded Knee Memorial Site. It is an awesome site to go to. If you drive by it, you look up a hill and you don't think it's anything special. You have to get out of your vehicle, walk up the hill, take a breath before you go through the gates. There is a very sacred feeling coming from that ground. It's also what they call an active cemetery, and there are people who die today and have died in the past, besides of the massacre, that are there. You will see ribbons on the grave sites. You will see ribbons hanging on the fence that goes around the mass grave. There are certain things about Wounded Knee that I will never forget, and one is our youth standing at that fence, hands folded, praying, and tears coming down their face. The other thing is that a lot of the kids we took noticed that there were a lot of military people who served in the armed forces were there. So Marlene was the gal who'd given us the history, and we talked with her, and she said, the Native Americans are warriors, and they fight for the country. And in doing some research, I found out that the Native Americans are the largest group of people of any ethnic or race that serve in our armed forces. So they are very proud of their service. The other thing that, and then I'm going to leave because I know my time's about up. The other thing that will always stay with me is Marlene is kind of like the storyteller who told us the history and gave us a criteria for going through, which was to have respect for the gravesite. So she was up, we stayed down below while she took sage, and she was going to walk through the cemetery and do a sage cleansing so the spirits would become with people coming in. And that's a sight I'll never forget. We're kind of standing down here, and Wounded Knee Memorial is up here. And here you see this figure, and it was late in the afternoon, just before dusk. And it's like a shadow of a woman walking through, doing her sage routine. Wounded Knee, if you get a chance, you need to go. It will take your breath away. Thank you.
Alrighty, so I'm Chase. I'm here to talk about our cliff diving experience. The rule that we were given right when we got there was don't work past about 1 or 2 because the heat will start really getting to people. So we had stuff planned out. We've had rodeos and things planned out for the night. One of them was cliff diving that Pastor Paul really hyped up, saying how it was an amazing experience. And then on our way there, everything's all good. We step out the vans, and he says, yeah, the water's low, so no diving. And that didn't really register for any of the kids. So we looked at that first cliff, and we're like, okay, don't jump off that. So we round the corner and go to the next cliff, which was 10 feet higher. And there was an actual bank that you have to actually clear, all that grassy stuff. So we looked at it after screaming across the water at the parents. We decided just go for it. And we send Brendan and Camden to see if it's doable. So after they jump and at least get some water, we decide everyone's good to go. So everyone just starts climbing the hill. And then the good part about this was everyone gave great encouragement and motivation to help people jump off a really tall rock. And that was both people that were scared and didn't want to jump, or it was Brendan that thought it was a great idea to run and spin off, which ended up almost taking him and Camden over the edge. That was rough. And then also when we were there, since this all makes sense, there was, after someone jumped, Lindsay, there was a rock that was just floating. So she thought it'd be a good idea to push it down. Turns out that was a huge snapping turtle. So that was eventful.
Thanks, Chase. I can't add anything more to that. I can say, though, that I did not jump off the cliff into the water. But I was across the pond with Ellen, and she was taking pictures, and I was observing. And it was terrific to see all the youth working together, encouraging one another, and not pointing fingers or anything else. I mean, they were like family together up there. And the one that went off the cliff last was Pastor Paul, like the captain going down with the ship. But he brought up the end. And this was the Lakota swimming area, and they let us use it.
Well, our next great event would definitely be the rodeo. It was really cool to see everyone on that mission trip sitting together in the bleachers. About halfway through the rodeo, we see a car that was stuck in the mud on the other side of the arena. So Vince Fall looks at me and says, hey, Camden, would you like to go get that car unstuck? And I said, yeah. So we both run over there and start pushing as hard as we can to get this car out. Mud is going everywhere, it's spraying up, and eventually it does climb out. And while we're standing there catching our breath, we hear over the loudspeaker, Vince, this song's for you. And we're both in amazement. And we look at each other and we hop over the fence. And after about 1 minute of terrible, horrible dancing, I see Vince whip off his shirt and fall right back in the mud. And I say, well, that looks fun. Now I gotta do it. So I do the same as he did, and we climb out of this arena, as you can see, totally just covered in mud. And we received a standing ovation for our performance.
I do want to note this was a rodeo, and those were horses and cattle running around in that arena where they decided to take their drop into the mud. So there was a lot more than just mud in that hole.
On Thursday night, the community hosted a league night at Little Boone High School filled with basketball tournaments, sand volleyball, and horseshoe. This gave us an opportunity to interact more with the people of Kyle and make important relationships. Not only did we figure out that we weren't nearly as good at basketball as we thought we were, but we also had a lot of fun playing a giant game of volleyball with about 20 of the local kids and all of us. It didn't matter that we weren't playing by the rules or that we had hardly any room to play. What mattered was that the connections that we made while having fun with the kids.
So the league night, it started off with a big basketball tournament, and on this reservation, a big game was basketball. Everyone played every chance they got. Every breakfast there was a game going on. Every lunch they would get something going, and then every night there would be always big tournaments. So our group thought it would be a great idea to go join and play them because we obviously play lots of basketball. Not really, but so we thought we could go in and just do decent, and we suck. Yeah, everyone was really good. There was this one kid, he was probably 10, he was like 4'8", and just because we just needed to put man on man, we gave Will Fall to him, who's like 6'4". Will Fall never did anything. The kid shot like 3 or 4 threes over him. Yeah, that wasn't good. We got whooped a lot. There was the adults that we played. They were really good, and they let us get ahead by like 10 points just so there was some kind of competition, and then just swept. So that was rough. Yeah.
Lindsay?
So during the week, we all had small groups, and we were divided up in like groups of 5 to 6. And honestly, I loved my small group, and it was like my favorite time of the day. It gave me time to talk about what happened in the day and how I felt about it on 2 different levels. Tommy Cole was our leader, and she was the best leader our group could have asked for. She was super nice and amazing. After we were done talking about our day, she would share about how her day went. Each group had their own names, the mamas and the papas, the to be determineds, because they never made up a name, the thumpers, and the Lila Wash Day. My group was the Lila Wash Day. In Lakota, it means very good, but in our heads, it meant positivity. Every day I learned something new about someone in my group, if it was sad or happy. I was sad to say goodbye to my group at the end of the week, knowing I couldn't see them every day. As I go back to that week, now I realize that I made new friendships, not just in my group, but during the entire trip. When my group met somebody, I'd always meet them because they'd introduce me to them. It was nice to know that during the week, my group, and I hope the other groups, had each other's backs, from bean picking to talking to ourselves for 10 minutes to get to know each other, and just helping out whenever we needed them.
My name is Trish, and part of the assignment with the groups was that we had to write a poem every night. So this is one of the nights that we wrote. The group theme was on substance abuse, a huge challenge on the res, and a huge challenge in our own community. And this is one of the poems one of the groups wrote. Once upon a time, there was snow all over. Then this boy jumped head first right into it. He took a deep breath and his mind raced during the entire 10 miles. Suddenly his body and his mind hit an abrupt stop sign. As he awoke, he found himself behind bars, trapped in addiction. Years later, with weeks left in his sentence, his mom, seeing in the weekly paper that her son had passed, and had skimmed over a picture of him in the obituary section. I've walked the walk, alcoholism, drug abuse, shame on you. You've stolen so much, like a thief in the night. You've taken our parents, spouses, children, and other loved ones, so innocent at first. Then you set the hook and reeled them in. Hey, what harm can it do? It's just a little bit more. I'm sad today. You set my sisters against me. We all love our mother. They want her with no pain. I want my mother back to share with me. Now I will have to go my way alone, till forgiveness draws us back. You bring so much pain, tears, and turmoil. Yes, you stole our loved ones. You even stole God away from them when you became their God. But through faith and tough love, you will not win. God is love. You are evil.
So I get to tell you about the campfires we had, but before I do that, just so every parent is aware, we did have a nurse on staff that was with us, and we had a veterinarian who had horse sutures with them to fix anything that got broken or cut. So every day after our work day, we got to come together as a group, and we had a campfire. And so let me tell you about the campfires. It brought 30 strangers together to tell stories about their day. Some stories were funny, and some weren't. Some were filled with how we're able to interact with the community, and some were how we were rejected by individuals in the community. But that was okay. It was a time for individuals to express how they were touched by this experience. We got to sing songs with Dave Borghetti and Pastor Paul on the guitar. We gave praise, we prayed, but more importantly, I believe each of us extended our Emmanuel families and faith.
So I had the opportunity to be able to talk to you about a little reflection of the trip and what we learned and when God was with us through our trip. So this mission trip was definitely a life-changing experience. We saw a lot of stuff that we didn't expect to see, that we were told we might see, but we were kind of like, oh yeah, that's not gonna happen. But I know it's a lot of stuff that you don't see back here in Wisconsin. Several things that I took away are take advantage of the small things and moments in life because they can mean a lot in the end. And be grateful for what you have, no matter how big or small. There are also several methods of prayer, such as songs, silent prayer, actions, poems, etc. Substance abuse can impact not only the addicts, but also everyone around them. And God was active and moving with us along the whole trip. He was shown through us when we were picking bean after bean for hours on end in a several-acre farm for all of them to be sold at farmers markets. We also had a chance to hand out T-shirts to some of the Lakota people in the cafeteria, after lunchtime. We also got to play basketball with the kids from the Boys and Girls Club, along with participating in league night, which was basketball, volleyball, horseshoes, all that stuff. Also on the campsite, there was 7 puppies, and we named every single one of them. There was also 3 kittens on a farm, and 2 of them are here right now. One of them is named Beans, and the other one is named Peas, and then Coda is at my house. I adopted him, luckily. So yeah, and one of them's going to Bob.
Bob and Jill are taking this one,
and then Tommy Cole is taking the other one. So they will all have nice homes to live in and be taken care of. Oh yeah. We were in a bus on our way back home, and Mackenzie had some pancakes. She took a little bit of a pancake and was like, "Can I feed it to the cat?"
Because they were starving.
Because they were hungry. So we gave it to the cat, and then all of a sudden the cat just starts jerking and I don't even know. And we gave it to Alexa, and she's like, "Oh my God, it's choking, oh my God." And we give it to Scott, and he's like, "I can't pull over right now, we're driving," and he's like, "We're on railroad tracks, I can't pull over." And she's like, "Well, we need to pull over, it's not happening." And so we pulled over, and everyone's still driving ahead of us, and luckily we got the pancake out. But just advice, don't give cats pancakes, because
gluten-free pancakes.
it's not good. Yeah. So, and also he was with us when we were together on the campfire after every hardworking day that you guys just heard about. God also helped us grow as a team because when we first went, we were all basically strangers. Like, we knew each other's names, and we knew, like, some things, like where each other went to school and all that kind of stuff. But after the trip, we for sure are now, like, a big family, and we know a lot of stuff about each other that usually wouldn't happen just on a normal daily basis. So that was a lot. Yeah, and if you may not always see God or like feel him or that kind of stuff, but he is always with you, and I'm for sure very thankful for this mission trip, and I will take the memories and learnings with me throughout my lifetime.
When I went out on this mission trip, I was actually a little apprehensive. I've been on a number of them, and when you hear 90% unemployment, drug and alcohol abuse, my biggest thing was, well, move. If you can't find a job where you're at, move. We've all moved for jobs, and why can't you? So I went out there with the idea that, you know, these people just need to fix their problems. But as the second line of Amazing Grace, I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. As we got out there, I realized that, you know, there's a reason it's like that out there. First of all, we put them in southwest South Dakota. This was land we didn't want. Southwest South Dakota, I love the Dakotas. It's beautiful, but it's beautiful because there's nothing out there. So, you know, you're not going to have a factory out there that provides jobs. It's hard to get people to come out to South Dakota to run the factory. And I could always tell where the reservation started because South Dakota, a lot of it is very flat, very easy to farm. There's crops everywhere. And then you'd hit the reservation and the hills would start. So it'd become hilly and rocky, and you can't farm hilly and rocky. The tractors roll off hills. So you can't farm this area either. So, okay, you can't farm it. There's no jobs out there because you can't put a factory out in the middle of South Dakota and expect people to show up. Then the question was, all right, well, can't you move? And a lot of them do. A lot of people do move. Cruz, one of the Native Americans who kind of befriended our group, was there for the summer because his family had moved away, but they wanted him to come back for the summer to reconnect with his people out there. So he was with us for a lot of the week. So a lot of them do move out. But what I realized was that they're making do with what they have there. The reason they're growing vegetables is because vegetables produce a lot in a very small footprint, and it's very labor intensive, but you don't need a tractor. So they could grow their vegetables on these little pieces of land that they could get. We had a 5-acre plot that produced a ton of vegetables for these people. So they were making do with what they had. People would leave to go to college, but the Native Americans, they have different traditions and they look different. So now you take somebody off this reservation and you stick them in a college for the first time, really. You know, that's a hard thing. My daughter played volleyball, and a bunch of her friends got volleyball scholarships down, a lot of them down south. A lot of those kids were back within a month because they were out of their element. They were in a new environment. Down south, they sometimes don't appreciate the northern ones and our traditions, and they didn't like it, and they came home. Now you take a Native American and put them in some college somewhere when they've never been off the reservation, it's very difficult. So what they did is they made their own college. They have a college on the reservation where they're training their own people. So they're making do with what they have, and they're trying. A lot of them are trying. So it was a very eye-opening experience for me, and that's where God kind of entered my life and said, hey, you maybe don't have the answers you think you do.
On the final night, we had to write what was known as an acrostic poem with the word wisdom as the first letter of each line. We came to serve the Lakota people in spite of our ignorance of the truth, serving and sowing seeds of hope, devoted to be God's hands and feet. Opportunities abound to bond with the Lakota people, mindful of our new family and friends and their customs.